Welcome to GoodWorks, a production of the Nonprofit Alliance of Greater Lowell. My name is Suzanne Frechette, and I'm the president of the Nonprofit Alliance, or the NPA as we like to call it. We were founded in 2002 to strengthen the ability of our members to make our community a better place to live and work. We're a coalition of over 30 members, and our mission is to build collaboration and strengthen the influence and impact of the nonprofits in the area. We offer professional development, networking, and other partnership opportunities. In 2017, we started the Nonprofit Alliance annual award ceremony and breakfast to recognize members of organizations that may not always receive commendations for their tireless work in the community. We have 6 awards. They recognize volunteers, board members, a program staff member, an unsung hero, an executive leadership, and rising star. Nominations are submitted from all over the community, from peers, supervisors, volunteers, board members, and then they're judged by members of our community who are familiar with the work that the nonprofits do. The winners are announced at our breakfast every year. With me today are 2 of our award winners, Janine Nocco from the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, who won the Unsung Hero Award, and Angel Brunel from the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell, who won the Kathy Redeker Executive Leadership Award. So let's start by saying how you felt on awards day when you won. Angel?
Surprised and very humbled. There were big shoes to follow in the previous award winners, as well as having my name associated with Kathy Redeker's. So it was really a big honor and very humbling again for me.
So maybe we should talk a little bit about the name of the award. Kathy Redeker was the executive director of Acre Family Child Care, and she passed away from cancer in 2017. And so when we were thinking about our awards, we really wanted to name one after her, an acknowledgement of the great work that she did in our community. And as Angel said, the 2 prior winners were also exemplified the work that Kathy did. Now, Janine, you were the winner of the Unsung Hero Award.
Yes, I was. I was shocked. I had no idea that I was nominated. Very blessed to have been nominated, and also very humbled for the nomination.
I think I would have definitely highlighted just how fortunate I feel to be working and in the community that I live in. What an amazing community we have in terms of just nonprofits that are doing just such wonderful work, and as well as the for-profit community that supports that work in so many ways. It's really amazing to be a part of it. And then how fortunate I am to be part of the club and part of the team, working under such great leadership with Joe Hungler and my colleagues, and then the amazing staff and kids that we get an opportunity to be a part of. So I feel like that all comes together to help me be the best staff member that I can be, and the best at supporting the community.
That was great. I wish we had an opportunity to hear that speech. Let's talk a little bit more about what you do at the organizations that you work at. You know, the whole point of the awards and even of this show is to really showcase how important nonprofits are to the greater Lowell area. I think oftentimes we're overlooked, or we're not acknowledged for not only the wonderful work we do, the funds that we bring into the community, and all of the residents and the services that we provide. So by talking today about your organizations, it will allow us to give some of that information to the community or the residents that are watching.
Sure.
So Angel, what is the most influential decision you have made at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell?
Well, I think that a good part of the influence that I've had at the club really stems from one, I do a lot of research and a lot of just trying to keep on track with trends in the field and kind of stay ahead of them a little bit. And then at the same time, I'm also kind of a risk taker. So I feel like where I've been able to have a lot of influence is in bringing some bold ideas to the table, but also having the research to back that up and get the support. So I can go into the administration and our board and say, I really want to try something new, and here's why I think it will work. So that's led to things like incorporating mobile bidding into our events, and really embracing social media and peer-to-peer fundraising with our board as a way to raise funds. And then really a shift to focusing on our relationships with individuals and corporations and a little bit away from events. So folks might have heard that we had a golf tournament last week, which was our 40th and our final. We've decided not to have the golf tournament, even though it's a very successful event for us. We really want to use that time elsewhere. So those are, kind of some of the things that I feel like I'm able to bring to the table.
So how do you cater to the needs of and achievements of staff and volunteers? It's, it's a big issue sometimes, especially for volunteers. You want to make sure they feel satisfied and want to come back and work with you again.
Right. Well, I think it really starts with understanding what their motivations are, what their goals are. I think with volunteers, because we have volunteers in so many capacities at the club, it's very important to match them up with a role that they're going to excel at. So we have some volunteers who just want to be in the office. They maybe ironically don't want to work with the kids as much, but they want to do something good for the community. And then we have other people that they have a skill that they want to bring to the kids and they want to teach, things like that. So it starts with really understanding what people's goals are. Same thing with staff, is knowing not just what they want to do on a day-to-day basis, but what their goals are 5 years from now, so that we can help mentor them and make them feel like they're really growing into the career that they want to have.
Excellent. So, it's not easy working in a nonprofit. It requires long hours and a lot of commitment. So why do you do the work you do supporting the organization, the Boys and Girls Club, and the kids that you serve?
Great. So I've actually spent my entire career in youth serving agencies, starting as a camp counselor, fresh out of college. And I learned really early on that it was really satisfying and very rewarding to have, to be able to influence the adult that a young person's going to grow into. So whether that's introducing them to something they've never tried before, helping them achieve something they didn't think possible, to just listening, giving kind words, or just seeing who they are. I think that's really important, and it's really a blessing to be able to do that type of work. And as the development director at the club, I can have a very wide impact by influencing the resources that we have to provide more opportunities for our kids. But what's really wonderful is I also get to spend time with kids all the time, because they're right there in the same building. And so I still feel like I get to have that connection and that influence and be able to be a little part, at least, of their lives.
That's great. So again, you're sort of segueing into the last question I had for you, which is, what does compassionate leadership mean to you?
For me, compassionate leadership really means meeting people where they're at. Like I said, understanding what their motivations are, what their goals are, but even just where they're at that moment, that day, or that period in their life, and then doing what I can do to help them feel as successful as possible. I think anybody that's worked with me knows that I have very high expectations for myself, but I also have very high expectations for other people. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help them meet those expectations, but really starting with kind of that basis of understanding and being able to give people what they need in whatever moment that might be.
Thank you. So Janine, you won the Unsung Hero Award, which Joe came up with this award, Joe Hungler, your boss.
Yeah.
And it was really to identify and award and recognize that person who is in the back room, in the back, doing stuff every day, making things run smoothly, but doesn't necessarily get the acknowledgement or the recognition. And in the case of your nomination, they all believed to a person that you were that person for the Community Foundation. And having worked with you, I know that's true.
Thank you.
So now, you're the comptroller and administrative officer. So how does that work push your company towards their financial goals?
Having worked at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation for 19 years, my duties are diverse. They include working with donors that have invested in the Community Foundation to create endowments, managing their distributions, and sending them annual fund statements. I also prepare monthly financial reports for the Board of Directors so that they can make strategic financial decisions for GLCF. Additionally, I oversee and maintain the relationships between our auditor and our investment partners. Another part of my job is onboarding new employees, making sure they start off on the right foot for GLCF.
Well, as I said, the unsung hero was that indispensable person who really the organization couldn't run without. And you sort of identified why that is through the list of your duties. But, you know, I've seen you in action. Talk a little bit more about why you're indispensable. I know it sounds very grand, but we'll put it out there anyway.
I've been told numerous times that I'm the resident historian at the foundation. I'm always willing to connect the dots between the new staff members and prior programs, prior projects. We are a very busy place, but I enjoy what I do.
So tell me an example of, and I know you have them, of problem solving, either maybe at your annual meeting or Celebrate Giving or some kind of problem solving that you've brought that's created the success at your organization.
Ooh, Celebrate Giving.
We know they're there.
Being a small organization, many times we all pitch in as a team. I'm able to problem solve things that are not traditional finance related because of my long history, and culturally it's what we do. I like that we can depend on each other and do things to get things done, and that I have a voice at the foundation.
So what's the most important part of your company's mission, and how do you personify it? You talked a lot about the financial side of your job, but we know that the Community Foundation is a grant awarding organization, and it does impact many of the nonprofits beyond even the reach of the NPA. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how the grants work out, but what is the most important part of your mission?
The foundation is comprised of over 350 funds, currently totaling $37 million, which is designated to improving the quality of life in 20 neighboring cities and towns. I am a key staff member who is responsible for financial operations, bookkeeping services, including preparing the financial analysis, income and expense reports. It is a responsibility that I don't take lightly. When I came to the foundation in 2000, I didn't know anything about community foundations. I had always worked in a for-profit world. It quickly became my favorite place to work. Seeing how funds came into the foundation and had made a significant impact on the community was heartwarming. I knew that my job mattered to the mission of the foundation and the community that we served.
So, tell me about, you said it was heartwarming. Can you give us an example of one time maybe that someone came in and set up a fund, or maybe a grant recipient, and that really moved you?
Funds, oh yes. There was a donor that came in. There was a little girl that had passed away, disabilities, and she set up a fund for Pennies for Cassie. And all of the schools, LHS middle schools, elementary schools had brought in pennies. All the kids brought in pennies, and they fundraised, and I don't remember the specific dollar figure, but all the kids participated, bringing in bags of pennies from home for Pennies for Cassie. And they had posted up this picture of her in her wheelchair and this gigantic smile on her face, and it just melted my heart.
That's
to
great.
See all the kids participated in that.
That's really great.
It was.
I think that what I took from working with the Community Foundation is the ability for everyone to be philanthropic, and it sounds like that's a perfect example of that. You know, it's not just rich people that have to get to set up funds and impact nonprofits, but that everyone can have a role with that. Welcome back to GoodWorks, a production of the Nonprofit Alliance of Greater Lowell. I'm Suzanne Frechette, the president of the NPA. With me today is Angel Brunel from the Boys and Girls Club and Janine Naka from the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. So during the break, we were talking a little bit about some of the programming that you have in the Boys and Girls Club, and I was talking about my grandson as now segueing into the teen room.
Sure.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about the programs that are helpful to teens.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those people who might not be aware, the Boys and Girls Club is primarily an after-school program. We also have a summer program for young people ages 8 to 18. And a very important population for us to serve are the teenagers, 13 to 18-year-old. Primarily, because there's not a lot of options for that age group after school or after they're done with their activities in school. Crime rates can go up in the evening hours, and teens really need a productive place to be. And we know at the club that in order to attract teens to the club, that we have to have a program just for them and space that's just for them, and really great opportunities. So 2017, 2018, we renovated our teen center, doubled the floor space, we have a nice big teen lounge. We have a career and college readiness center, which has a computer lab where they can do their homework, but they also have programs like diplomas to degrees, which are designed to help them figure out their path after they graduate, and then a robotics room or STEM technology room where they can practice some engineering and science and technology and really spark that interest. And in addition, we also had Planet Fitness came in and renovated our fitness rooms, so we have a little mini Planet Fitness in the club. And so that really has helped to boost our teen numbers. Currently we serve probably 100 to 105 teens a day, and we're hoping to get as many as 150 teens a day to come to the club. So oftentimes the teens from Lowell High can walk right to the club, and if they're at the Greater Lowell Tech, then they can take the bus to the club afterwards. And so things we do specifically for them in addition is we're open from 6 to 8 just for teens, so they have the whole club just all to themselves. Kind of feels a little bit like a nightclub. And then we do lots of field trips and college exploration and career exploration, and trying to provide them as many opportunities as we can, and exposure to different paths so that they really have a plan when they graduate. That's our goal, is for every teen who's coming to the club to graduate from high school with a plan, whether that's college, military service, trade school, or going straight into the workforce.
That's great. I know from John attending the summer program that the cost of the summer program is quite extraordinary. Why don't you share with us what it costs to go to the summer program?
So our goal is really to serve those families in our community that need a very affordable program. So our annual membership fee is $30 a year. And for teens, it's $5 a year, because a lot of our teens are paying the membership fee themselves. And then in the summertime, we do a full day program from 9 to 5 each day. It includes breakfast and lunch, plus all the activities, and then 3 teen nights a week, and that's $30 per week per member. And we do offer financial assistance for those families for whom that might be a stretch as well. So again, the goal is really to make it accessible to everybody who needs the club. That
boggled my mind when my daughter first told me about the cost, but it brings up a perfect segue into the foundation. It's because of donors that they're able to offer those programs in the work that you do. Are there any other, funds or grants that you want to share with us that really have moved you, or that really should be brought out to the public?
We have 3 different grant cycles that we have. So we have our capacity grant cycle that happens, that I believe just happened. It happened in the April-May timeframe. We have our Neshoba Valley grant cycle that's going to be happening in September, and they have a the other grant cycle is Net Scouts. Net Scouts brings, it's a company that lets their employees go in, and organizations can I can't even think of the word, they pitch to them, and the employees get to vote on who the nonprofit is that's going to get the money, and they give them $10,000. That's kind of our business philanthropy, which is really nice. And the employees love to do that, which is great.
And the other thing too that because I've been on the grant review committee before, and I learned so much about the other nonprofits and what they do, but I also learn about the ability to create a fund. This is my fantasy if I didn't win Powerball, so I didn't win it, I'm here. However, if I win, one of the things I'm going to do is donate money to the Community Foundation, because first of all, they do all the work, but I get to decide I want to do a field of interest fund around this and that, and so it's impressive the number of funds that you have and the number of fields that you cover. I mean, you do everything from the Merrimack watershed to other environmental, and then the elder services. I think that's LeClaire.
Yes, that's the LeClaire,
And so are there any other donor advised funds that you can talk to us about and let us know?
So we have a number of types of different funds. We have designated funds where the donor designates year after year that it's going to go to that specific nonprofit. So those are designated funds. We have field of interest for music or arts or homeless shelters. Those are field of interest. We have donor advised, where every year they could change out the nonprofits that it goes to. We have scholarship funds, which we have Lowell High School scholarship funds, and then we have other schools that are not Lowell High School, like Chelmsford, or we have Chelmsford, we have Dracut, we have Bill Ricker, Tewksbury, and Oakmont Regional High School, actually.
Where is that?
It's not around here.
Okay.
It's the Carrie Projan Scholarship Fund. She was one of the women that had passed in 9/11, and her parents created the Carrie B. Projan, and it's a scholarship for one of the Oakmont Regional High School students.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are the avenues that you can create a fund under.
And it's really impressive that, you know, I always would think to myself, if I wanted to live forever, I would just start a fund at the Community Foundation.
Right.
And I know the little high funds, the scholarship funds you have, the number is pretty...
275.
275.
Yeah.
And every year someone will say, do you want to be on the Scholarship Review Committee? And I say, no.
Yes, you do.
It's 275.
Better endowed, don't forget the pass-throughs.
And then the average number of applicants to any given fund is a lot.
Well, it depends. They have to have a GPA of 2.5 or higher in order to be applicable. And there's about 750 kids in every Lowell High School graduating class, so it's an average of 320 kids that are applicable. And so you're averaging 310 kids that get divided or get filtered into 327, 350 funds. So that can generate, on average, 6,000 applications.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. I know.
Yes.
I've had family members who have been on the committee, and we, through the Rotary Fund, my Rotary Club has a fund there. But I've also done the Stacy Stott review and then awarding. And I know you have Lowell Catholic funds as well.
We do.
And so that's the other great thing for creating a scholarship fund, is being that person who hands the student the award. It's pretty cool thing to do. Yeah, that's a long event. And that's why I know there's so many funds. I've sat through it more than once. And then, so now, do you have a fund at the Community Foundation? I'm not sure that you guys do.
No. So essentially, the way that our funding works is that we have basically three primary sources of revenue: our grants, so foundation grants, as well as which we have received generous funding from the Community Foundation. As well as some very small government grants and a little pass-through funding from the Boys and Girls Club of America. That's like maybe 40% of our budget or so. And then we have individual and corporate donors, so appeal letters that we do and major gifts, and then our events as well. So that comprises about 96% of our budget. The fees that our members pay is about 3.5% of our operating budget.
It's amazing.
So we're kind of constantly in the always looking for how we can expand that, diversify the revenue a little bit, and grow our budget. We have actually grown. We've doubled in size in the last 7 or 8 years.
That's amazing.
So yeah,
it's impressive. It's impressive. And Janine, the other thing I know about the Community Foundation is that you get to respond to critical needs or current events. I know there was a year you did the opioid crisis. I think there were grants for that.
Yep.
And then I remember Children of Trauma. I don't remember if that was because of 9/11 or if it was because of the bombing.
It was because of the bombing. Yes. I can remember the acronym, and it's not a great acronym, so I don't want to say it. But it was for the suicide bombing, and GLCF had raised. We gave $10,000, but they had raised funds. I want to say it was maybe $12,000 that went towards that, and it went to local nonprofits that were dealing with children that had been affected by that bombing.
Right, by trauma. Yeah, it was. I remember being part of I was at the meeting for that. But that's, I think, the great thing. And I remember the opioid. I mean, it's tough when you're in a nonprofit that isn't in that particular bucket. You know, I do grant writing for Habitat, so housing doesn't fit the opioid crisis. But at the same time, that ability to swing over to what is the most critical need of the community is really what makes the Community Foundation special.
Correct.
And that you also have people on your board who are sort of in touch with that. Are there any other programs that are offered to nonprofits?
Really just the grant aspect. The donor advisors actually come to us and ask us, are there any nonprofits out there that are in need of something? At one point we did have the wish list.
I remember that.
And it did pan out for some nonprofits, but it wasn't what we had hoped it was, so we had stopped doing it. but we do still have donor advisors that come to us and say, oh, you know, what do you have, who needs what, and we do filter them to the nonprofit. They may give through us, and we direct it to them for that particular project. They may fund something that didn't get funded from capacity grants.
Right, that's happened.
Yep.
I sat in on a grant review committee, and at the very end I remember someone, I don't know if it was Jay or George, saying, George was at the foundation saying, oh, that's okay because we have a donor that's going to fund something and we'll probably give him.
And she did it privately.
Yeah, it was great. So the other thing that we haven't talked about, but the connection to the Community Foundation, is the fact that we were founded, the NPA, in partnership David Kronberg, who was the president of the executive director of the foundation, along with David Turcott, who was at UMass Lowell. They founded the NPA. It was an offshoot of a group that was meeting through United Way, all executive directors, and that was sort of filtering out. And so they came together to form the NPA. And it was always, it's always been separate, although you're now our fiscal sponsor, which is awesome. Yes. I can't tell you enough. And we had a great relationship before, but you know, we've been very lucky in that regard. But it does help support the nonprofits in the area in that regard as well. You know, one of the things that the nonprofit is part of is the Mass Nonprofit Network, and I used to sit on the board as the Northeast Region representative. And so I would go to the meetings and talk a lot about the collaboration in Lowell and how literally a nonprofit can pick up the phone. And I had done this both at Coalition for a Better Acre and at Habitat, and say, hey, you know, either I'm putting in for a grant, would you partner with me, or I'm looking for X, or I have this problem, can you help me out? And then I would talk about Enterprise Bank and their reception that they hold for nonprofits and all these different things that were going on in that community. And for the most part, the folks in Boston couldn't believe how non-competitive we were, how we didn't feel compelled to not share because you might get the grant that I wanted, and how we worked so well collaboratively. And I think it's just really something that is unique to the Greater Lowell area. And I think it's in part due to the fact that we are open to calling each other, and we're not afraid to talk about funding. Parker Foundation's a big one right now. Everybody's calling saying, how's that going? But it's also because of the Community Foundation and the resources that we have through the foundation, and also Celebrate Giving, which is in the fall, and your annual meeting, which is within the next week.
This week. This is Thursday.
Thursday. So we come together frequently through different events, and we recognize each other as collaborators, partners, and friends. That was, for me, the biggest thing that the NPA brought me as a new member of the nonprofit community about 15 years ago, is the ability to know when I walked into a function, a room, a conference, whatever, I would see friends and I wouldn't have to be nervous. So anyway, I'd like to, in closing, like to say that membership in the Nonprofit Alliance is open to any nonprofit in the area that either works or resides in the Greater Lowell area. We meet the first Wednesday of the month from 8:30 to 10 o'clock at the Enterprise Community Space. And we have our website, www.npalowell.org. We do charge dues, but they're very reasonable. And we ask that if you cannot afford any dues, because some nonprofits have zero budget, that you come anyway, if not to join, at least to learn from us. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And congratulations. I couldn't think of two better people to win those awards.
Thank you.
Thank you.